This is Money, Motivation, and Mike, and I am your host, Michael Wainwright. In charge of the show is Jason Wright, and hello to you, world. This is the show that can and will change your life. You can contact us at info@mx3.vip and find all of our content at mx3.vip or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@mx3podcast. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of all new content, which comes out every Monday morning around 9 o'clock. Now, before we get into today's topic, Jason, number one, as we do this recording, 148,809. So we are just 1,200 short of where we need to be by May 1st, and we are right on target to make that happen, as the recording of this show still in late April, and the show we will put this show on the air, what, the 4th?
5th, isn't it?
5th. Okay. So right there. And also, before going on the air, Jason informed me today is show 150. Is that correct, Jason?
That is correct.
150 shows ago. That's 150 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Coming right up on it right now. That is the total show. That's starting with the podcast and then podcast YouTube channel going into 2023 and so forth, right?
That is correct. I don't think we've missed a week.
No, we've never missed a week.
Yeah.
Sick, never been sick at sea, baby.
That's right.
Yes. Now, in the December of 2022, when we were down doing the show in Fort Lauderdale, where the home family office club,
mm-hmm.
we did several episodes during that weekend.
Yeah.
That ended up airing over time.
Right.
Where we didn't totally just record every week. So other than that,
yeah.
But we've never missed putting out new content and a new show every Monday morning around 9 o'clock, I believe.
That's right.
So show 150. Now, Jason, have you heard of Rule 114? Rule 114 in the financial sector.
No, I have not.
Okay. So on this show, we have talked about Rule 72 before. Rule 72 is you take your interest rate that you're getting on an annual basis and you divide it into 72, and that tells you how long it takes for your money to double. Rule 114 is taking your annual interest rate, divide it into 114, and that's how long it takes for your money to triple. So another aspect of trying to get people to save money for their future, whether it's an item they need to buy all the way to the other end of retirement, education, everything else in between. But those are some rules that you should be thinking about when you're finding what interest rate you're about to get. So in other words, the savings accounts that the banks promote on a regular basis for the most part of the last 50 years has been 1-2%. Now I know it's up right now because interest rates are high, but over the average, they have been low, closer to zero than any other number. And a couple years ago, they were at 0.5%, but we'll just use 1%. So at 1%, it takes you 114 years for your money to triple. Put $1 in 114 years, you'll have $3 at 1%. Bad deal there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are thinking about that, there you go. Now, on the other hand, you get 10%. That's 11.4 years. You will have 3 times as much money as you put in. That makes you a little happier. And on and on and on. You know, we always talk about where can you get 18% and divide it into 72 and your money doubling in 4 years. And on and on and on. Well, same thing here. What is that number you're looking for? And in that time frame, for your money to triple. Am I wanting my money to triple in 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, or 1 year? Obviously, you got to get 114% if you want your money to triple. But nevertheless, that is the rule of the day. And here we are going on show 150, and Nish now bringing that up. Now, we have an apology in order here, Jason, as we on this show have really focused on anniversary dates from from the Combine and some of the school activities that have happened, and 9/11 and so forth and so on, JFK assassination back in November of 24, on and on and on. And something right here, right down the street from us, actually 2 hours and 45 minutes from the studio that we record in, one particular item that we forgot about as of April the 19th, 1995, the Oklahoma City bombing. And I am very sorry that I forgot about the Oklahoma City bombing, because it was right there for me with 9/11, if not even closer, because we had local people that, well, I knew a girl from Sherman that she graduated from Sherman the same year I graduated from Denison. She was in the Oklahoma City bombing. We have had a previous team member of one of our companies, cousin, killed in the Oklahoma City bombing.
Wow.
Yeah, and those particular people in their 20s, and as we know, they weren't even the youngest ones. And since then, and the big deal there is you don't want any of that stuff to ever happen. But the big deal there was the children that were affected. That just it just turns your stomach and makes you sick, especially with the lack of remorse that has came before his death of Timothy McVeigh, who main dude, but we also had some co-conspirators as well, such as Terry Nichols, who right now, is still in prison, still alive. McVeigh's the only one that got the what I call the death chamber, lethal injection now.
Yeah.
But he is the only one. And the third person, who was the gentleman who lived in Kingman, Arizona, and I'll get into this here in just a minute, but I'm hitting some of these higher points, who knew about what was going to happen and actually visited the front of the Alfred Murrah Federal Building in 1994 with McVeigh. He served 10-year prison sentence because he knew about it and didn't stop it. Wasn't involved in it, but he knew that it was going on, and actually took a trip to downtown Oklahoma City with McVeigh to do a little planning. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yes. And he served 10 years, and he and his wife knew about it too. He served 10 years, and he's in the witness protection program right now, which, if you knew about something like this going to happen and you didn't try to stop it, I could see where your life could be in major danger. But he served 10 years, and I'm just going to assume somewhere in the 1995, 1996 timeline. So he's been out of jail for a good 20 years. Nevertheless, April the 19th, 1995, the Oklahoma City bombing. And because of where we live, 2 hours and 45 minutes from downtown Oklahoma City, we got nightly updates on finding another body and trying to identify who that body was. And of course, the World Wide Web was just coming online, but you didn't have all of the news media and the things that went on social media that goes on today. So it still wasn't a major source of getting your information.
Right.
Back then, it was still reading the newspaper, hearing it on the radio, and then the 6 o'clock news and the 10 o'clock news. People set their lives around the 10 o'clock news because they went to work, they did their thing, they went to the sports fields or the piano lessons or whatever it was in the evening, and you sit down and watch the 10 o'clock news, and then you go to bed at 10:30. Unless you lived in the house I lived in, then you got to watch Johnny Carson. and on and on and on. And then when you get into college, you put David Letterman on the end of that deal too. But nevertheless, 10 o'clock news was a big deal. And not to get on to that, but that was the first thing that came on at 10 o'clock every night for a good month to 2 months. That, what did they do today? What did they find out today? Because you weren't going to the internet, at 12:15 they did this, at 2:45 they did this. You're waiting all day in anticipation of what happened down there. And unless you knew somebody that was down there.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have cell phones. Nothing. So, the Oklahoma City bombing. A domestic terrorist attack. All right. So a couple of other events that you think about this. Timothy McVeigh, those guys were our own. Armed forces, met each other in the Army. One of our own people. Okay, and what I mean by that is the Waco David Koresh deal.
Yeah.
You chose, now maybe you got brainwashed, but you chose to go be a part of that cult. You went there. You believed what you were hearing. You chose to go there for the first time. And we weren't there, I don't know. Maybe it was so brainwashing right off the top that after you've been there for 10 minutes, you couldn't get out. I don't know. But nevertheless, I feel that if someone wants to get away from that stuff, they can. But you chose to go there. You had terrorists from another part of the world come and get involved in 9/11, and them being over here for whatever it was, a year and a half, and making all their plans and coming here from another country. But this is a deal where it's an American. Now, we're talking about Americans shooting other Americans and murders and bank robbery and all this other stuff where people get killed innocently. But this is an American who decided to take terror into his own hands in the front of a federal building because of his lack of interest and aggravation with the United States government was basically the reason. But domestic terrorist truck bombing at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, United States of America on April the 19th, 1995, exactly 2 years to the day of the David Koresh Waco invasion. You knew that too?
Yeah.
Crazy. The bombing remains the deadliest act of domestic terrorism. So, 9/11 doesn't count because that was international. Domestic terrorism in U.S. history, perpetrated by anti-government extremist Timothy McVeigh, the mastermind, and his accomplice, Terry Nichols. All right, the bombing took place at 9:02 in the morning. Now, we'll get into this here in a minute too, but he wanted it to do it at 11, more along the lines of when the invasion was in Waco. But at 9:02 in the morning, he killed 168 people, injured 684, and destroyed more than a third of the building, of the federal building, which has now been demolished. I remember when they knocked it down. The blast destroyed and damaged 324 other buildings and caused an estimated $652 million worth of damage. Now, I didn't know that until I started doing my research for this particular show, because all you ever see is the side of that building being knocked down and all the rubble at the bottom, and you don't think about all the other surrounding areas that get involved. And, when McVeigh put that bomb where he put it, he was not expecting that building to come down. Just like bin Laden never thought those towers would come down.
Right.
He thought it was going to blow out glass and windows and do damage around the area, but most of the damage being done to the federal building. He was rejoiced when he saw the damage that actually was done. Did you know that?
No.
And he watched, because remember, he got arrested here about an hour and a half after the bombing. He watched with people who ran the jail where he was at in Perry, Oklahoma. Watched on the TV just like everybody else did. And that was the first time he had seen what had actually taken place. This puts a lump in your throat. $652 million. The Federal Emergency Management Agency activated 11 of its urban search and rescue task force, 665 rescue workers on site. And there was one rescue worker that was killed, which is what took it to 168. There was 167 in the explosion. Another one was killed with debris fell on the lady and obviously killed her instantly because she was hit by some concrete. Fallen debris in the building. Within 90 minutes of the explosion, this is what's crazy to me is you are driving a vehicle that doesn't have a license plate on it. Are you wanting to get pulled over? Because that's typically what's going to happen. Where's your license plate? Why's your car? Because remember, McVeigh had no warrants out for his arrest. He had nothing on his record for them to do a background check and pull him up after they got his driver's license. He literally got pulled over for a traffic violation. Is the only way on that particular day they would get him. The 90-minute after the explosion, McVeigh was stopped by Oklahoma Highway Patrolman Charlie Hanger. Have you ever seen the interview with Charlie Hanger?
No.
He didn't even suspicion nothing. When the bombing took place, 99% of your law enforcement ran to downtown Oklahoma City. He was one that was told to stay in his area and continue to patrol, supervise, and law and take law and abiding the citizens. He just happened to be on the highway as McVeigh was going down I-35 right at Perry, Oklahoma. He was driving without a license plate and was arrested for illegal weapon possession. That is the reason he got pulled over. Had a gun laying in the back seat. The guy didn't even want to search him. Had a gun laying in the back seat.
Well, it's not too uncommon here in Texas and Oklahoma. Somebody have a gun in the back seat, but
if it was
registered.
Yeah, if it was an illegal weapon and I just blew up the federal building in downtown Oklahoma City,
yeah,
I'm probably going to be a little bit more
cautious.
Yeah, on the up and up.
Yeah,
than just flaunting it.
Yeah,
incredible.
Not driving 70 down to 60.
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, and remember, because of all the chaos that was going on in the area, you're supposed to see a magistrate, a judge, within 24 hours of going into a prison. Judge usually comes at 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Next morning, the judge didn't come because of all the craziness that was going on in that area. So McVeigh had to stay another day.
Oh, too bad.
That is the only way they kept him then. I mean, this is incredible stuff. So anyway, the legal weapons got him into jail. A judge not being able to make it the next morning kept him in jail. And from the illegal weapons, they took forensic evidence that quickly linked McVeigh and Nichols to the attack. Nichols was arrested, and actually, he wasn't arrested. He turned himself in.
For the bombing.
Yeah. Terry Nichols turned himself in. He was not like barged into his house and put him on the ground and stuck handcuffs on him. Yeah. His wife drove him to the police department, and he walked in and turned himself in.
Wow.
But because I'm sure he knew that it was just a matter of time, and now that was a couple of days later. That wasn't that day. Michael and Lori Fortier were later identified as accomplices. Now, this is Michael Fortier, who went to downtown Oklahoma City with Timothy McVeigh. Now, these guys, veterans of the Gulf War, the Persian Gulf. I mean, they met at Fort Benning in 1988. The official FBI investigation, known as OK Bomb, involved 28,000 interviews, 7,100 pounds of evidence, and nearly 1 billion pieces of information. When the FBI raided McVeigh's home, they found a telephone number that led them to a farm where McVeigh had purchased supplies for the bombing. The bombers were tried and convicted in 1997. Now, they had to go away. I believe it was in Denver, Colorado, is where McVeigh's court time was, because obviously it's hard to find some people that don't know about what just happened. So they couldn't do that in Oklahoma. McVeigh was executed with lethal injection on June the 11th, 2001 at the U.S. Federal Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. Nichols was sentenced to life in prison in 2004, 9 years later before he was sentenced. In response to the bombing, the U.S. Congress passed the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty of 1996, which limited access to habeas corpus in the United States, among other provisions. The motive. The chief conspirators, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, met, as I say, in 1998 at Fort Benning during basic training of the U.S. Army. They also, at that time, met Michael Fortier as his Army roommate. So McVeigh and the dude that lived in Kingman, Arizona, were roommates in the Army. The three shared interest in survivalism. McVeigh and Nichols were radicals, white supremacists, and anti-government propaganda leaders. They expressed anger at the federal government handling of the 1992 Federal Bureau of Investigation standoff with Randy Weaver at Ruby Ridge, as well as the Waco siege, a 51-day standoff in 1993, as we've discussed, between the FBI and the Branch Davison members. They also began with the botched Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm attempt to execute and search and arrest the warrant in Waco. That really upset McVeigh. You know, it upset a lot of people because of the innocent people that were killed, several young people, as well as the police officers that, I mean, when you see those guys up on top of that roof trying to go through that window, that just seems like a bad deal from the start.
Oh, yeah.
There is nothing there that's going to come out positive to me. And that's just, we don't know anything about this stuff, but you could watch that. That's another day. But how do you plan on that type of deal? McVeigh later said that instead of bombing a building, he had contemplated a campaign individual assassination. U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno was one of his possible targets. And FBI hostage rescue team sniper Lon Hornikish. Hornikish was involved in Waco. He initially intended to destroy only a federal building, but he later decided that his message would be more powerful if many people were killed in the bombing. So he chose 9 o'clock in the morning, not midnight when nobody would be there. Because you could have vandalized the federal building and sent a message.
Yeah.
But you really send a message when you take innocent lives. And that's what he did. You know, the people who were going to work that morning, the kids who were being dropped off at daycare that morning, they had nothing to do with Waco. They had nothing to do with McVeigh. They had nothing to do with what was trained in 1988 at Fort Benning, Georgia. Just innocent folks living their life on April the 19th, 1995.
Right.
That's what's aggravating to you.
Yeah.
McVeigh also looked at attack sites that would target at least 2 or 3 federal legal force enforcement agencies. So, I mean, that is why the federal building in Oklahoma City was such a big deal, because the Bureau of Alcohol, ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Drug Enforcement Administration, Secret Service, U.S. Marshals, and other additional law enforcement agencies all had premises and presence at the federal building in downtown Oklahoma City. This 9-story building, built in 1997, the DEA was there as well, and the Social Security Administration also was housed. In all, 14 federal agencies, recruiting officers of the Army and Navy and the Marine Corps as well. 14 federal agencies was in the Oklahoma City federal building. And that was the most agencies in a federal building that McVeigh could find. So he was also looking in Denver. He was also looking in Texas, in different places. He planned the attack on April the 19th, 1995, to coincide, obviously, with the second anniversary of the Waco siege, and also the 220th anniversary of the battles of Lexington and Concord during the American Revolution. I did not know that.
No, I didn't either.
Rumors had alleged that the bombing was also connected to the planned execution of Richard Snell of Arkansas, a white supremacist, who was a member of the Covenant of Sword and the arm of the Lord CSA, and who was due to be executed that day the bombing took place in Arkansas. So he was also boycotting and protesting that as well. Get this. McVeigh and Nichols, they then attempted as putting their supplies together. I found this intriguing because we have a lot to do with racing, etc. Trying to put this stuff together, they attempted to purchase 55 U.S. gallons, drums of the nitromethane.
Yeah.
You know, the nitro divisions at the drag strips. They call it the nitro. Okay. Tried to purchase the nitromethane at various NHRA drag racing series events during the season starting in early 1995. Their first attempt was at the Sears Craftsman Nationals held at the Heartland Motor Speedway in Paulding, Kansas. They could not get it there. They were out. Had already committed everything they had for that day. The next round of the NHRA Championship Tour was at the Chief Auto Parts Nationals in Ennis, Texas, at the Texas Motorplex. Hour and a half from where we sit right now, where McVeigh posed as a motorcycle racer and attempted to purchase nitromethane on the pretext that he and some of his fellow bikers needed it for racing. He went there and entered and proposed as a bike racer because, you know, the bike division. However, there was no nitromethane powered motorcycles at this particular meeting, and he did not have an NHRA competition license. Therefore, he was denied access that day and any other future day coming up. So he struck out when he went to the NHRA, but that is how far he went with this stuff. On April the 14th, 1995, McVeigh paid for a motel room, not a hotel, a motel room at the Dreamland Motel in Junction City, Kansas. The next day, he rented the 1993 Ford F700 truck from Ryder under the name Robert Kling. Didn't know that either. An alias he adopted because he knew an Army soldier named Kling with whom he shared physical characteristics and because it reminded him of Kling warriors in Star Trek. Okay. April the 16th, 1995, he and Nichols drove to Oklahoma City where he parked a getaway car, a yellow 77 Mercury Marquis. Now, if you've ever seen the shots from the helicopter shots above Oklahoma City and all these cars, all these service vehicles going into downtown Oklahoma City, and there's one little yellow car working its way out of downtown Oklahoma City. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't.
It's chilling. It really is. But nevertheless, the 77 Mercury Marquis, they parked it several blocks away from the Murrah Federal Building. The nearby Regency Towers Apartments lobby security cameras recorded images of Nichols' blue 1984 GMC pickup truck on April the 16th. After removing the car's license plate, they actually had him on camera removing the license plate so that nothing could be tracked back to that car because it was going to sit there for 3 days.
Yeah.
He left a note covering the vehicle identification number plate that read, "Not abandoned. Please do not tow. Will remove by April 23rd. Needs a battery and a cable." Then both men returned to Kansas. And, you know, back in those days, suspicion is not there. Okay, we're going to help the guy out, leave his car here. We don't have to tow it in and then pay another $275 to get it out of impound.
Yes, different times.
So they let it sit there.
Yeah.
The getaway car stayed right there. And on April the 17th and 18th of 1995, McVeigh and Nichols removed the bomb supplies from their storage unit in Harrington, Kansas, where Nichols lived, and loaded them into the Ryder rental truck. They then drove to Gary Lake State Park, where they nailed boards onto the floor of the truck to hold the 13 barrels in place of mixed chemicals using plastic buckets as a bathroom scale. They actually put these buckets and weighed them on bathroom scales to see how much they had. Each filled barrel weighed nearly 500 pounds. I didn't know bathroom scales could go to 500.
I didn't either.
McVeigh added more explosives to the driver's side of the cargo bay so that he could ignite at close range with his Glock 21 pistol in case the primary fuses failed. So if the fuses didn't work, he's going to shoot the truck.
Okay.
And ignite the truck, obviously. During McVeigh's trial, Lori Frontier stated that McVeigh claimed to have arranged the barrels in order to form a shaped charge. This was achieved by tampering, placing material against explosives opposite of the target of the explosion. The aluminum side panel of the truck with bags of nitrate fertilizer to direct the blast laterally toward the building. I'm not an expert on all that, so I don't really know what all that means, but obviously it was some kind of scientific stuff that they probably learned, in the Army. McVeigh's original plan had been to detonate the bomb at 11 a.m., as I was stating earlier in the show. But at dawn of April 19th, 1995, he decided to instead to destroy the building at 9 a.m. As he drove towards the federal building in his Ryder truck, McVeigh carried with him an envelope containing pages of the Turner Diaries. I knew that he was involved in the Turner Diaries, a fictional account of white supremacists who ignite a revolution by blowing up FBI headquarters at 9:15 one morning using a truck bomb. He got this idea out of the Turner Diaries. McVeigh wore a printed T-shirt, and he actually wore a Marine T-shirt. He also had Legend of Brutus and Julius Caesar tattoos. Also claimed to be and shouting John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
So, guess that's what he was. Who knows? And also, people going back and accounting that they heard this guy shouting John Wilkes Booth.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. And the Tree of Liberty, that would have been the blood of the Patriots from the Thomas Jefferson days. McVeigh entered Oklahoma City at 8:50 a.m. and at 8:57 a.m. the Regency Tower apartment lobby security camera that had recorded Nichols' pickup truck 3 days earlier recorded the Ryder truck heading towards the federal building. At the same moment, McVeigh lit the 5-minute fuse. 5-minute fuse. 3 minutes later, still a block away, he lit the 2-minute fuse. He's driving the truck. He's got a gazillion pounds of explosives at his back. Yeah. He's already lit the 5-minute fuse. Then he lights the 2-minute fuse, and he's still a block away from parking the truck. Now, 2 minutes. Park the truck. Get away from the truck, get in his escape car, and head down the street. 60 seconds, 120 seconds.
Not much time.
He parked the Ryder truck in a drop zone situated under the building's daycare center. Puts a tear in your eye. Exited and locked the truck. As he headed to the getaway car, he dropped the keys to the truck. Now get this, a few blocks away. I haven't timed myself from going from block to block. He drove a block, parked a vehicle, got out of that vehicle, and literally walked 2 more blocks in less than 2 minutes.
He's hot-footing it.
He was getting after it.
Yeah.
At 9:02 a.m., The Ryder truck containing over 4,800 pounds of ammonium nitrate fertilizer, nitromethane, and diesel fuel mixtures took out the front of the north side of the 9-story Alfred Murrah Federal Building. 167 people were killed and hundreds more injured, 1/3 of the building destroyed, created a 30-foot wide, 8-foot deep crater in Northwest 5th Street next to the building. The blast damaged 324 more buildings, as we talked about. That was within a 4-block radius, and shattered glass in 258 nearby buildings. The broken glass alone accounted for 5% of the death total, or 69% of the injuries outside the federal building. The blast destroyed or burned 86 cars around the site. The destruction of the building left several hundred people homeless and shut down several offices in downtown Oklahoma City for months. Once again, man, it's not about money. $652 million worth of damages and many lives lost at 9:02 a.m. April the 19th, 1995. You could talk about the Oklahoma City bombings on a show for days and days and days, as you could any of the other topics that go along in this particular line of an episode. Another unfortunate deal, I think the thing that hits me the most is the fact that it was a domestic terrorist attack on our own people by one of our own. Not only that, he served in our armed forces. They served in our armed forces, actually. Money, Motivation, and Mike, episode 150. We continue to and try to bring you information, knowledge, and stories such as today that will better your life. Now, obviously, maybe today it was a more informative day and not necessarily better in your day, other than Rule 114. But nevertheless, once again, I apologize that we didn't do this episode a couple of weeks ago due to the fact that it just looked right over it and did not realize that the Oklahoma City bombing, I knew it was in 1995, and I did not know it was April the 19th, but obviously I do now. You can contact us at info@mx3.vip and find all our new content at mx3.vip or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@mx3podcast. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of all of our new content, which Jason puts out every Monday morning around 9 o'clock. So if you've never been to Oklahoma City and visited that memorial, it will put the hair on your back, a lump in your throat, and potentially a tear in your eye when you see those little white chairs, or those that show the babies that were a part of this particular unfortunate circumstance that day. 19 victims of babies and children just going to another day at the daycare. So everyone who's been a part of this show, Money, Motivation, and Mike, continue to live your life the right way.